Excellencies, distinguished delegates, really appreciate the opportunity of addressing this webinar on what, as we've heard from Jan, is a vital issue of seafarers and crew changes during COVID-19. If I may, COVID-19 pandemic means that 2020 will be a year that will be long remembered. This is certainly true for shipping, which exists to facilitate trade and the maintenance and improvement of global living standards. Before I start my brief words, I just want to now place on record our sincere thanks for the leadership of the Secretary General of the IMO and his IMO colleagues during this crisis, along with the International Labour Organization, the World Health Organization, and other UN bodies who have come together in an unprecedented level of cooperation as we've all tried to work towards solutions. Although the situation is now starting to stabilise and we have seen some improvement in recent weeks, nonetheless, there are still hundreds of thousands of seafarers on board ships impacted, looking to be relieved and replaced with fresh crew. This is a vital issue, and an issue, if not resolved, has the potential to affect the delivery of sustainable development goals, disrupt supply chains, and increase costs for all countries at a time when they can least afford it. Shipping transports $7 trillion worth of cargo each year. Failure to properly address this crisis could lead to a logjam which will impact each and every country in their ability to trade globally. The shipping industry is very pragmatic. We are adept at finding solutions. However, this is one issue we absolutely cannot resolve without the help of you, without the help of governments. We welcome the intervention and efforts of member states on this call, but the humanitarian crisis remains and more needs to be done. We as employers have been doing all we can, often going to extraordinary efforts to undertake crew changes where possible and diverting ships thousands of miles to enable changes to take place. But it's not enough, and our seafarers need your support. This COVID-19 pandemic has put an extraordinary challenge before the world, and its effects and impacts are being felt and seen everywhere. Quite evidently, the pandemic is already having significant impacts on our industry, but it has shown the vital importance of maritime transport as it supports the maintenance of global supply chains and carries the essential commodities, energy and supplies, including medicines. It has also shown the vital role that seafarers play. They are on the front line. They are the heroes of world trade. They have kept on doing their duty throughout. We therefore need seafarers to be designated as key workers and prioritised for travel with the minimum of restrictions. The UN Secretary General and the Pope have recognised this and have called to an end to the crew change crisis. The United Nations General Assembly has adopted a resolution calling for all countries around the world to designate seafarers as key workers, and this has been mirrored by similar resolutions at the IMO and the ILO. Only last week, the Committee of Experts of the International Labour Organization ruled that governments collectively had failed to cooperate during the COVID-19 pandemic and solve this crisis. The ruling on the provision of the MLC makes it clear that all governments have to follow international law and urgently recognise seafarers as key workers with practical effect. This means allowing seafarers to get off in ports for medical attention. It means enabling seafarers to get to an airport to fly home when their contracts are finished. And it means letting replacement crews through a country's borders to join those waiting ships without having to battle and mountain a bureaucracy. But to date, despite progress, only 46 countries, and I recognise many of them on the call today, have classified seafarers as key workers. This is simply not good enough. We know by you being here today that you understand the issue. However, the main obstacle to resolving this crisis is that many border protection and health authorities still lack understanding of the essential role of seafarers in the flow of global trade. The evidence is clear. The risk presented by cargo ships and crew travel is relatively low, especially given the extensive health protection measures being taken by our industry, which are detailed in the industry-developed framework of protocols for ensuring safe ship crew changes, which Jan talked about in his presentation. We have no wish whatsoever to bring infection on board our ships. Not only is that disastrous for the crew on board, but it also costs business. In contrast, the risk presented by further inaction to the resilience of the global supply chains is incredibly high. This is the message that we really need you all to take away today. The time to act is now. This is an issue of equity, equity for the seafarers and equity for all countries, particularly developing economies. If the issue is not addressed, the likely countries to be hardest hit will be those least able to overcome the consequences. There is a critical need to address the many restrictions and administrative problems that continue to prevent the conduct of crew changes. Red tape and bureaucracy must not be allowed to trap our seafarers or lead to economic problems in countries. As an industry, we are working hard to ensure the health and safety of our essential workforce, and we stand ready to support all efforts on rapid implementation of programs that will facilitate safe crew change. This will benefit all. Looking ahead, and with the welcome arrival of an effective suite of vaccines, it is also vital that our global key workers of seafarers are prioritised in receiving the vaccine to ensure, just when the world is starting to recover, the supply chain suffers the least disruption. The seafarers that serve us deserve nothing less. Thank you very much for your kind attention.